So Jim Rutherford was involved in some late night trading last night. At 1 in the morning, he traded Derek Grant 1-for-1 to the Ducks for Joseph Blandisi. Before I start, let me just clarify that, usually when the Penguins make a trade, I don't really know much about what's coming back the other way. I'll know a little bit and mostly need to do some research. But for Joseph Blandisi, this is not the case because I've actually been a fan of Blandisi. Going back to his time with the Devils, being a 21-year-old rookie, he really caught my eye, right? Because that name, Blandisi, I never really recognized it. So I'm like, who is this guy? And obviously being a Penguins fan, we used to watch the Devils play the Penguins 5 times a year. So I really got to see this Blandisi guy. And I, from there, would follow him here and there. Now, I wouldn't watch many Devils games, but I would keep an eye on him here and there. And now that the Penguins have him, I'm actually pretty excited because not only do I know what I'm talking about here, but he's actually not a bad player. Joseph Blandisi is a guy who's been a top 6 winger his entire career in the junior level, putting up 244 points in 246 games in his OHL career, and then transitioned pretty smoothly to the AHL, putting up 100 points in 131 games over his time in the AHL. And he has seen some time in the NHL as he's played 74 career games and he's put up 26 points in those 74 career games. Now, this is a guy who's been a top 6 winger, like I said, in the junior level and then in the AHL level, but didn't really transition it into the NHL. I don't think he's going to be a top 6 winger for the Penguins, but I do think he will be an NHLer. He's only 24 years old. I don't know if I mentioned that yet, but he's pretty young still, 24 years old. He does have some sort of NHL experience, and when he's played in the NHL, he hasn't really disappointed. So for me, Joseph Blandisi is a guy that you can put on the third line. I think he'll be a solid, consistent third liner. And the thing that interests me about this, I even tweeted this last night when it happened, he's a Penguins type of winger. He's a guy that I wouldn't be surprised he could see some time on Crosby's wing. The Penguins, they usually try out a lot of wingers on Crosby's wing. If you're playing with Crosby, it doesn't really mean that you're a first liner, but it means that you can play well with Sidney Crosby. And I think Blandisi, just watching him play in his career, I think he could, put up numbers and play well with Sidney Crosby if there's an injury to one of his wingers, like a Brian Rust or Jake Gensel, and the Penguins start trying out new wingers. I think Blandisi can get a shot, and he could do well with him. But other than that, I do think he'll be an NHLer for the Penguins. Now let's talk about why the Penguins did this. Why was this trade a thing? Why did they trade Grant for Blandisi at 1 in the morning? Why was this a thing? So here's what I think happened. I think the GM of the Ducks, Bob Murray, is in full desperate mode because his team has lost 12 in a row and is slowly going further and further from the playoff picture. So I definitely think this is Bob Murray calling Jim Rutherford. I don't think Jim Rutherford went out of his way to make this trade. I think he wanted to keep Grant. I don't think Grant, he was necessarily shopping him. He's done his job. Derek Grant is a solid center when he has been in the lineup. But then this brings me to my point of Bob Murray being desperate because obviously Derek Grant was a Duck last year and he had a great season. He put up 12 goals, 24 points in 60-something games. He was a solid fourth, third line center. He even got some time on the second line last year when they had all those injuries. So they really like Grant. So again, right now, Grant wasn't the only trade they made last night. He's in desperate mode. He's making all sorts of trades, and I'm thinking that he wants to bring back a familiar face. So he traded Derek Grant. He went to Jim Rutherford, is what I think. And Jim Rutherford, like I said, I don't think he was shopping Grant, but when Bob Murray came up to him, he's like, okay, so you want Grant? So I'm sure he looked through the Ducks lineup and he's like, who can I get that can benefit me? And he looked at Joseph Blandisi, who I think could benefit the Penguins. Another reason why this was done is because Derek Grant is 4 years older and a UFA. So being a 28-year-old UFA, the Penguins weren't going to re-sign him. Whereas Joseph Blandisi, who's 24 and is an RFA, the Penguins will re-sign him and he'll be getting better as years go because he's only 24. So the way I look at it is the Penguins won this trade because I think Jim Rutherford took advantage of Bob Murray being a little bit desperate because, like I said, Bob Murray probably wanted his guy in Derek Grant, and Jim Rutherford knew that, so he took advantage in taking a younger player who he can keep going towards the future because he's only an RFA. Another reason why I think this happened is because Derek Grant is a center, and the Penguins don't need centers. But, another position that, they're pretty weak at, or not weak, but not as stacked, is the left side. Because if you look at the Penguins forwards, they're stacked on the right side. They're stacked down the middle. But the left side, it's a lot of question marks after Jake Gensel. So I think Joseph Blandisi can make the NHL on the third line as a regular. And a big part of that is because his position benefits the Penguins, being a left winger. Another final reason why I think this happened is because Derek Grant needs to go through waivers to get sent down. Joseph Blandisi doesn't need waivers. And the reason why I bring that up is because Justin Schultz will be coming back soon, and the Penguins will need space for him to come back. So one of those guys needs to get sent down, and the Penguins were going to lose Grant for nothing. So I don't think they wanted to lose Grant for nothing. But here instead they get Joseph Blandisi, who can go down to the AHL, which I think will happen. I don't think that's because he's not good enough, but they will need space. So I think sending him to the AHL is the best for everyone. They don't lose any player for nothing. Blandisi gets to work on his game, probably playing on the first line in the AHL. And like I read to you before, he's really good in the AHL level. He puts up points. So I think he can go in the AHL, build his game, get familiar with the system down there. And then either later on in the year with an injury, he can get called up and then sent back down. Like, they have that flexibility. They can send him down, send him up whenever they want. They're not going to lose him for nothing. And he's an RFA, so they will sign him in the summer. They're not going to lose him for nothing. The way I look at it, I think the Penguins win this trade. They give up a center that they didn't really need, a 28-year-old UFA, and get back a left winger, which, they need left wingers. 24 years old, a guy who can go through waivers, an RFA that they can re-sign at the end of the year, a guy that can be a part of this team going forward. And, his ceiling, I look at him being a third liner, and anything above that is a bonus. And like I said, being a left winger, I think he can work his way up, maybe on the line with Malkin. But overall, I think he'll be a solid third liner. So that's going to wrap up the video. Give me your thoughts on the trade. I know I had a lot to say about this trade. Doesn't seem like much, but the reason why I had so much to say is because Blandisi, like I said in the beginning of the video, is a player that I've been following low-key here and there because I really liked his game with New Jersey. So I'm really excited for him to be on the Penguins. So yeah, like I said, give me your thoughts on the trade. Like the video. Did you like the trade? Did you hate the trade? Comment your thoughts, and I will see you guys in the next video. Thank you for watching.